Okay, we're going to start today with a little bit of theory on this concept of a Mongo aggregation pipeline. I don't know about you guys, but when I first heard that term, like, whoa, this must be a really complex topic. That's where my brain went. It's just kind of like a word that, to me, invoked a little, I don't think fear is the right word, but like, I just don't know what that is. It sounds complicated. I don't want to touch it. And it is complicated in the sense that, Mongo queries aren't that hard. I think you guys are finding that out through these labs. Like, I just gave you a bunch of queries to figure out, and with minimal exceptions, you guys are just figuring them out. Like, you used your brain, you troubleshoot a little bit. Like, compared to other stuff that we do, it's not that hard. And so aggregation pipelines are hard in the sense that they are the more complicated queries that you can write in Mongo. Okay, and I'm not going to say that they're all easy, but they're the harder queries that you can write in Mongo, but they're still, as you break down, like actually learning aggregation pipelines, I think there were a couple things, at least for me, that really helped. Okay, so I want to talk about this. I want to show you that they're not the hardest thing in the world, and hopefully I can help you get over like these hurdles that I certainly had when dealing with aggregation pipelines. And so, as soon as you hear this word aggregation pipeline, you hear that there are stages to process documents. Remember, documents in a Mongo database are basically your records in the collections, right? The collections are your tables. The records are the documents compared to normal databases. And so the easy analogy that everyone gives when you talk about stages is an assembly line. Anybody ever work in an assembly line? I've never worked on an assembly line. You've worked on it? Okay. Well, what happens on an assembly line? Like, something goes down a conveyor belt. That something in this case is like the data. And then it hits a worker, which is a stage, if you will. And then that worker kind of transforms whatever's on the conveyor belt into something else, right? And then it goes to the next worker, the next stage, and that worker transforms whatever's on the conveyor belt. And it continues to go down the conveyor belt until it's all done. And that's what aggregation pipeline stages are. They are just different workers on an assembly line that take the data and transform the data and send it on until you reach the end of the pipeline, and then the data is effectively transformed. So aggregation pipeline have stages. I'm just looking at the Mongo docs, right? It goes from one stage to the next stage, and probably the most beneficial thing that you'll do with aggregation pipelines is you will start to group your data together using the grouping stage and looking at your data in different ways. And so there's this whole field called data science, right? And data science is pulling data out and making it look a certain way, transforming data into a presentable format. And so that's the power of grouping your data in different ways. You can group your data in different ways. We'll take a look at it and present your data based on how you group it. And when you group it, you can do things, basic sums. You can sum the data. You can average. You can max. You can min. But one of the more, like I would say, the heart of aggregation pipelines, like one of the main benefits of aggregation pipelines, is grouping your data to shape it differently. Okay, now as we learned that there's a bunch of stages, you can click on stages and you can see that these are all the stages that belong in a pipeline, and like there's a lot. There's a lot of different stages, right? So we're not going to know all of these, but what I did is I pulled out the most common stages that you'll find. And so we already talked about stages, and I'm going to do some code demonstration of basically all of these today. Okay, and I'm going to do it in a very gradual format. And so, this is just, there's a million queries that you could write. Okay, a million ways that you can write different aggregation pipelines. I'm working with some sample data in MongoDB. Like, you guys have all been working with this sample mflix. Okay, and I'm going to work with Mongo Shell because that's how. Now you don't have to write command line, but if you can do the command line, it translates really well into JavaScript. Like, what's ahead? There's a major benefit to learning the command line for when we're actually writing our Node apps. And so if I just show collections, like these are our tables, these are our collections of data. And so inside of movies, we can see that there's a bunch of movies, and we're familiar with this collection of data, of records, of documents. Okay, and so the first one to kind of talk about is the match. Now, a match stage is essentially a filter stage. When I just did find, that's finding all of the documents. If you don't want all of the documents, and you guys remember, you can modify this find query to find a certain director, to find a certain actor, or any movie with the year after 2010 or what have you. And you guys have written a bunch of queries. You're familiar with how to do that. Match is the equivalent of find. It's filtering your records inside of an aggregation pipeline. So I'm just going to type this just so you can see. Let me zoom in just a little bit and full screen. Okay, so we've got the aggregate method, right? This is an aggregation pipeline, and it accepts an array. So the first thing that you see is an array of stages. And the first stage is an object here, $match. And this is the match again. Now, remembering this is kind of the equivalent of find. I didn't put any filters in there, so it just ran the whole command. So let me get my match back in here. And I want to find Quentin Tarantino is a director, right? So let me spell his name properly. Okay, so these are the movies with the director of Quentin Tarantino. And if I find, there's the writer, Quentin Tarantino. You can write and direct a movie. There's the director. Okay, so the director of Quentin Tarantino, so that's working. And you can provide multiple filters by providing a comma, maybe the runtime greater than or equal to GTE. You guys are familiar with that one, 120 minutes. Okay, so this is the match stage, which is providing a filter. Really nothing special here, other than, this is the equivalent of a filter in the aggregate pipeline. So that's the first stage, and that's filtering the data with transforming the data with a filter. Well, I want to take a look at something here, and the next one that I want to cover is probably one of the stages that is most confusing. So zone in for me here, and I want to draw your attention to this unwind stage. So the unwind stage will essentially expand an array into individual elements. And so let's do this. I want to show you this cast. Okay, now the cast of this movie, there's 4 cast members, And this movie, what's the name of this movie? Django. How many seen Django Unchained? Okay. Bunch of people have.
It's a funny movie.
Okay. Well, there's one record for Django Unchained. And you can see that that one record has an array of cast members with 4 cast members. So what we do when we unwind the cast is that one record becomes 4 records. Right? Is Django Unchained with Jamie Foxx? Then there's I keep calling them records, documents. There's one document with a cast of Jamie Foxx. It's not an array. It's a single cast property with Jamie Foxx. Then there's another Django Unchained document with Christopher Waltz. There's a third one with Leonardo DiCaprio and a fourth one with Kerry Washington. So it turns one record of Django Unchained into 4 records with individual cast members. So you can see how it expands or unwinds a movie. So let's add and unwind. If I hit, just because I think it's clear the screen. Okay, I'm gonna bring this command back. Now this object is the match object, so you pass in your next stage with the comma here, so the syntax is a little different. Okay, now this is the unwind stage, and we are making a field, so that's kind of where the $ represents. We're making a field called cast from the cast array. So $ unwind, $cast, and if my syntax doesn't fail me, you will see what was a cast array is now separate documents with an individual cast element. Why would we unwind something? Well, the objective here might be, well, I want to know how many movies Samuel Jackson is in that were directed by Quentin Tarantino. Well, so I want to count, or I want to sum the number of Samuel Jackson, but I can't do that without unwinding the array first. I want to know the number of documents that Samuel Jackson is. It also has, so that's where we're going. Okay, that's essentially the query that we're solving for. Okay, so now that we have unwound the array into its individual documents, now we need to group documents together, and you have to specify a key, which is like a unique value. In this case, the key will be that cast property, which is the name of the person. So now that we've unwound the array, now we're going to bring data back together by grouping data together by the cast member. And then we could do what are called aggregate functions, such as sum, average, min, and max on the group data. Again, remember, this grouping is what I consider to be the heart of aggregation pipelines. It's like, hey, this isn't necessarily how the data is currently stored, but we're going to transform it to group this data together in this way and then perform some different operations. So let's now use a group stage. Okay, I'll clear the screen. Here's our current aggregation pipeline. After we've unwound, our next stage is the group stage. And you have to have an ID property, which is that cast field. So we're going to group by that cast field, which is just the actor's name. And we're going to make another field called movie count. This is a movie count where we're going to use that aggregation function called sum. :1. So for every time you count that name, add 1 to the movie count for that person. Okay, again, if my syntax doesn't fail me, we can see, now a lot of these people have 1, but Jamie Foxx is in 2 movies with Quentin Tarantino. Turns out Samuel L. is just in 1 movie. DiCaprio's in 2. Huh?
Oh, there's not a bunch of... never mind.
Brad Pitt's in 1. Okay, so you can see these different stages and how at each stage we've transformed the data ultimately to give us our end goal of counting the number of movies that these cast members are in, right? So that's example number 1. Okay, second example, okay, because I got a lot more functions to cover here. Second example, let me... I don't even remember it. Okay, find the 5 movies with the highest movie rating, IMDb movie rating. Again, we can kind of go back in here and do a just to kind of inspect. There's a couple of ways that you can rate movies. There's Rotten Tomatoes, and then there's also IMDb. Well, your IMDb's have ratings and votes. Okay, but I'm looking at the IMDb rating. So I just want to know basically the title, and I want to know what are the 5 movies with the highest ratings. And so that's where we're headed. The 5 movies with the highest IMDb ratings. We're going to do DB movies aggregate. It's an array. It's an array of objects. Now, you typically start your first stage with a match because this is your filter. And keep in mind, every stage works on the data. So the first thing you want to do is filter the data. You don't want to apply work to data that you don't need. So it's very common in aggregation pipelines, and they recommend doing the match first. And so let's match : object. Now, we know that we can access the rating through the dot notation, so imdb.rating. When you inspect this data, there are movies that don't have a rating. And so that was a challenge that I had to solve for in this example, because you're not going to use those. Like if they don't have a rating, you want to filter those out. So that's what I'm doing. I'm filtering out the movies without a rating. There was an empty string. Okay, so that's even why I'm doing this. The way to do that, I had to look this up. Okay, but you can basically apply a data type filter, and it looks like this. So the IMDb rating, data type filter, and these are like valid data types that if it's a number like an int, or a double, or a decimal. And close that, close that, close that, close that. Okay, so I start by filtering out the empty string ratings, and so now at least I have only movies with a numeric rating. Okay, so that's where I had to start on that one. Now, I remember talking with some of you yesterday, and especially when you're at this command line, there's just a lot of data in here that you don't need. And so it's like a lot to look at, and it might not be relevant to the answer that you're looking for. And so each one of these documents have a lot of fields, and you just might not need or want those fields. And so there's different ways of getting rid of those fields, but the stage that's there to get rid of fields by including or excluding fields is called project. Would you call that project or project? Project. We're going project. Potato, potato. You're calling it project? Potato, potato. I'm not going to get... I'm really second guessing myself, but it's...
I think project, since you're projecting...
Thank you.
Data.
But that's what I'm talking about. All right, so let's clear this up. Clear the screen. Okay, we're going to add the project stage after the match stage. So we're going to put comma, curlies, $ project stage. Let's include the, now, I think this is going to error. If I just say, give me the title, title 1, because give me the title. And notice it automatically includes the ID. Okay, now, yeah, I don't want that ID. Okay, so I'm going to hit up. Whoop. So notice the ID's there by automatically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say underscore ID of 0. So you can see, you can add stages or remove stages. 1 says keep it, 0 says get rid of it. The ID's there automatically. So I wanted to show you how to both include a field and how to get rid of a field. Also, I want the IMDb rating. So the field we're creating is called IMDb rating from the selecting the IMDb exactly named the same. And so now we got rid of the ID and all we have is a title and a rating. Okay, so cool, we're getting there. Well, now I just want the best ratings, and so we're going to apply a sort, right? A sort is what it sounds like. You're going to put the highest numbers up top. And so we're going to sort by the rating in descending order from the highest number to the lowest. Let's clear the screen. Let's bring in another stage. This is the $sort stage, and you pass this the sorting by IMDb rating in descending order. And now as you scroll up, your numbers get bigger. You don't see all the data. Wait a tick. That's not. Oh, I remember what I did wrong. I remember I did this earlier. Look at my query. I looked at this query and I said, I did my sort after I did my project. And so I wonder if it's projecting the data and then sorting it. Instead, let me try sorting it and then projecting it. Problem solved. So, because each stage, so you think about it, you filter, then you sort, then you project. Project says show the data. So, I don't know if I can do this easily here. Okay, you're working with me. let me just rewrite my sort right here. $ sort colon object quotes IMDb dot rating colon -1 comma. And it's easy to screw up your syntax here, but now we're talking. So again, you learn by doing this stuff, right? You guys aren't necessarily going to learn by me doing this. You're going to learn by you doing this. However, what I hope is useful is you could see that you're just, by these stages, you're just transforming and molding the data, right? That's why that was definitely an aha moment for me, to look at each stage individually and build it as you go, right? You'll never solve these things by trying to do it all at once. There's just too much going on. I really think it's in your best interest to write a little bit of code, test it, add to it, write some, test it, add to it, test it. And if you've coded for the year that I know you have in school, you're probably familiar with that concept. The last thing I want to do, because I covered all of these besides limit and skip. Limit says, give me 5 records, like the first 5 records. Skip says skip the first 5 records, right? So if I do a limit and a skip, let me do a comma, whoops, enter, limit. Now I just have the top 5 movies. You might say, but why is Civil War in there twice? I know I did. The reason Civil War is in there twice is that there's different releases of the same movie. Civil War is literally saved in the database twice. It's like, the English edition and the Chinese edition, right? So how do you solve for that? You could group by the title. You group by the title, and then you average their IMDb ratings together, which is 9.4. Then you solve for that. So let me, not that you have to see this, but let me do one last one. Let me clear the screen, bring back my current query, and after my match stage, I'm going to group by the title. The way we're going to group is with the ID of title. So grab the title values. And you can run an average function, because if you have like 3 movies and they're all rated differently, we'll just average out their rating. The average of the IMDb rating. And I gotta put that in quotes. And if I did that right, I got an extra, I got one extra curly. Let me delete that. That should fix that. Nope. When all else fails, I'm not gonna. Oh, good find.
I'm counting that there was originally the right number of curlies.
Yeah, I might have been off by 1, but anyways, I fixed my little syntax. Oh, you're right. I originally had the right number. I was looking. Anyways. Oh, come on. Oh, I know what it is. Sorry. When you copy and paste, it wants to do that. Okay, there you go. Now the Civil War is an average of their ratings, which is 9.4. and you don't have the duplicate data. If you want maybe not the first 5 movies, but the next 5 best movies, then you can do the skip operator. Or actually you do skip and a limit. That's what skip comma, skip 5, limit 5. There we go. So there's the next 5 best movies. Make sense? So you skip the first 5, you take the next 5. That's how you do paging controls. Like you say, okay, I want 5 results at a time, and then you skip the first 5 or skip the first 10, or, you know, skipping the first 5 would be page 2. Skipping the first 10 would be page 3. That's how you do paging controls, is with skipping and limits. So that's pretty normal. Okay. Introduction to aggregation pipeline. Again, you're going to learn by doing this, but I wanted to hit the common ones. Just because these are the common ones does not mean these are the only ones. I showed you the documentation. There's a lot of other stages that you can use. When you're really running more complex Mongo queries, a lot of times you wind up with aggregation pipelines. Calculating sums, averages, and other stats. Reports and summaries, analyzing data trends and patterns, complex data transformation, relational-like joins between collections. Those are some of the use cases for your aggregation pipelines. All right, we'll stop it there.